Let me start with a confession. When I became a manager for the first time, I thought my job would be simple and structured. I would set the strategy, I would organize the work, I would monitor progress, keep everyone motivated. That was the picture I had in my head, clean and logical. I liked the concept of things being organized and I saw myself being in charge of things moving from chaos to order. Well, reality hit me on day one. I sat down at my desk, started my laptop, and within 2 hours I had been interrupted half a dozen times. Someone asked for decisions, someone else had a conflict, there was a new policy I had to communicate, and in between I was trying to finish an important report. By lunchtime, I realized this isn't tidy at all. And it turns out what I experienced, well, it's the nature of management itself. But if you ever study management, like I did almost 15 years later, that is not the picture you get from books and lectures when you read books or watch podcasts. The vision of management is that of order and structure, of some sort of organized approach to problems. The problem that I see is that all those models are done by academics who often don't know anything about the real world management. My name is Marcel. I'm a chartered manager with over 20 years of extremely messy experience in an extremely messy world. Before I did my MBA, I relied on textbooks and articles which would always leave me with a single conclusion. Managers described over there were far superior to me. Their professional roles were clearly defined and always fell into a single definition, whereas I was 3 different people within the same hour or day. What I didn't realize is that I fell into a trap set by academics who, frankly, didn't know what they were saying. Because manager's life is messy. It's full of interruptions and opposite poles. And that's exactly what Henry Mintzberg figured out. I adore the guy. The first time I read his works, I felt there was finally someone with authority recognizing that the world of management is full of, chaos. Mintzberg is a Canadian academic who back in the late 1960s, early 70s, decided he was tired of the glossy theories about management. At that time, most textbooks talked about what managers should do: planning, organizing, commanding, coordinating, and finally controlling. It all sounded neat. It all sounded too neat. But Mintzberg had a suspicion that this wasn't what managers were actually spending their time on. So instead of writing another abstract model, he went out into the field. He shadowed managers, watched them work, tracked what they did hour by hour. He would sit in offices of CEOs and senior managers, watching the day being ripped apart and could not believe his eyes. What he found was messy, fragmented, unpredictable, but real. From that research, he built a framework that has since become one of the classics in management thinking, the 10 managerial roles. According to Mintzberg, managers don't just plan and control. They juggle 10 different roles, and he grouped them into 3 categories. Interpersonal roles, dealing with people and relationships. Informational roles, dealing with communication and knowledge. And decisional roles, dealing with choices, resources, and crises. And the kicker, managers don't do these in long, focused blocks. They flip between them constantly. Does it sound familiar? One moment, you're a leader, motivating your team. The next, you're a disturbance handler because something broke. Then you're a spokesperson in a meeting with executives. That constant switching, that's the real texture of management. Like most of you, I recognized that reality. And that was the first time that a major figurehead told academics in dusty libraries how the real world looked like. There are many roles, indeed. So let's go through them one by one with some examples. The first bucket are interpersonal roles, and within those there's figurehead. This is the ceremonial side of management, signing contracts, attending ribbon cuttings, welcoming new employees. It might sound like fluff, but here's the thing. People pay attention to symbols. When the manager shows up to a team lunch, it signals that the event matters. When you're the one welcoming a new hire, it sets the tone for the whole experience. Even in small startups, you play this role. A team's message from the manager welcoming someone to the channel, well, that's a figurehead moment. It's not glamorous, but it's extremely powerful. We should be aware of those and exercise them with great caution and timing. Too much of being in this role and you can turn into a buffoon. But not enough, and your value as an important person in the organization can be diminished. Number 2 is leader. And this is the one that everyone knows. As a manager, you're constantly leading. You're coaching, mentoring, motivating, and leadership here doesn't just mean giving inspirational speeches. It's in the one-on-one check-ins. It's the quick words of encouragement, the subtle nudges. I like to think of this role as being the emotional thermostat. If you're calm and focused, the team feels it too. I talk a lot about it in my videos, and it's my opinion that leading by example is the way forward. That's leadership in action from moment to moment. Third type is liaison. Now, this is where it gets interesting because managers aren't just focused on their own teams. They're constantly building bridges. Think about how much of your week is spent emailing other departments, grabbing coffee with someone in finance, checking in with a supplier, or chatting with a peer manager at lunch. That's the liaison role. And honestly, this is often where the magic happens. Formal channels, well, they're slow. Informal connections, the quick text message, the quiet favor, often make the difference between a project stalling and a project moving. That's probably an area in which managers spend the most of the time and is one of those roles where KPIs don't really work. The output you get is a quiet one, but it's extremely important. The second bucket of roles consists of informational ones. This is the intelligence gathering section and involves, hopefully this doesn't come as a surprise, a lot of listening and paying attention. The first role here is that of the monitor. Managers are information sponges. You're scanning reports, checking dashboards, listening in meetings, reading Slack messages, even overhearing chatter by the coffee machine. It's not just formal data, it's the vibe, the unspoken signals, and competitors' new product launch. You're always scanning the horizon. Similar to the crow's nest, you are there to understand what's ahead, but also to gauge a better understanding of your environment. Of course, once you gather information, you have to share it. And that's where the role of disseminator appears. Your team doesn't see everything that you see. They don't get the executive emails, they don't attend the same meetings. Part of your job is to filter all that and pass along what matters in a way that people can act on. Do it well, and your team feels informed and empowered. Do it poorly, and they're working in the dark. How you disseminate information matters too. Do it in a gossip style and see how the team splits and crumbles, but do it too formal and see your position of quiet authority disappear. There is an art in informing others of what's happening, and the exact format will vary from team to team. My advice here is to keep some distance between you and others when spreading information. It will allow for future distancing from it or further inquiry. The last role in this bucket is that of a spokesperson. This is the flip side of the disseminator. Instead of passing information down, you're sending it up or out. When you present to senior leadership, when you give a client update, when you write out all hands emails, you're the spokesperson for your team. Your credibility matters here. If you're known as clear, honest, and reliable, people will trust what you say. If not, your team's voice gets lost. Clarity of messages is important as much as how you structure it, but if you do this right, your gravitas will grow, and you will need that gravitas for the another bucket of roles that managers have, the decisional roles. The first one is important for growing the business, which is the ultimate goal of all members of any commercial organization. It's entrepreneur. Managers aren't just maintaining the status quo, they are also spotting opportunities, they're driving improvements, they are initiating change. That might be launching a new product feature, that might be redesigning a broken process, or simply tweaking how your team runs the weekly meeting. You don't have to be a sales manager to be in this section. The point is, you're not just running the machine, you're tinkering with it, upgrading it, evolving as it rolls. But sometimes things break, and that is where the disturbance handler steps in. A system crashes, a supplier drops out, maybe 2 employees clash, or a crisis blows up unexpectedly. When that happens, it's on you to step in, calm things down, and steer towards a solution. This is one of the hardest parts of the job because you rarely get advance notice. It just lands in your lap. And here's the truth. The role is what often separates good managers from great ones. Can you handle disturbance without panicking? Can you protect the team while fixing the issue? Cool heads here prevail. I'm biased here, but I see a prevalence of more experienced managers taking on this role. It comes from being bruised way too many times in similar problems and seeing the larger picture and having an emotional distance to it. If you want to increase your chance of being seen by the leadership as a steady hand, I encourage you to get comfortable in this particular role. Where most of us, irrespective of our experience, find ourselves the most comfortable is, in my view, the role of the resource allocator. Because management is, at its very core, about choices. Who gets budget, who gets headcount, what projects get attention. Even something as small as deciding which meeting you attend. That's a resource allocation decision. The challenge here is that resources are always limited. You'll never make everyone happy, but the way you decide transparently, fairly, thoughtfully will define your credibility. And then finally, managers are negotiators. Not always in the formal sense of contracts. More often, it's bargaining for resources with another department. It may be mediating between team members or finding middle ground with a client. A huge portion of management is subtle negotiation. It's balancing needs, aligning interests, finding a way forward. Those buckets and the roles within are what some call different hats. And it's likely that any given week, we all as managers embrace all of them. The word of advice here is that you don't need to spread them evenly. Doing so would probably be very unnatural. The message that I'm trying to send here is that as much as we all naturally prefer just one of those roles, we have to be flexible enough to move between them fluently and accept they will exist. You might be wondering, this framework was created in 1973. Why does it still matter in 2025? I think it matters because nothing has really changed about the core texture of management. Yes, technology has shifted the tools, but the roles are the same. The Slack message you send today is the equivalent of a memo in the 70s. Mintzberg captured something timeless, that management is dynamic, fragmented, and deeply human. I think that's the reason for the chaos within. And I think that's really the key takeaway. Management isn't about sitting in your office calmly planning. I actually never met anyone doing so for more than half an hour. In reality, it's about juggling, switching hats many times a day, being interrupted, redirected, and still finding a way to keep things moving. One moment, you're the leader, motivating your team. The next, you're a liaison, sending a quick email to get help from another department. Then you're a disturbance handler because two people just had a blow up. And before you can breathe, you're a spokesperson in a client's meeting. That's the rhythm. If you think you should be completely in one role, you will only end up stressing yourself and probably burning out in the long run. So if you're a new manager, here's my piece of advice. Don't stress about whether you're doing it right. Understand that you're supposed to wear all of these hats. All the skill isn't perfecting one role. It's in switching smoothly, reading the room, and knowing which hat to wear at any given moment. Because at the end of the day, management isn't one job. It's 10 jobs rolled into one. And you'll probably cycle through all of them before lunch. If you found this helpful, subscribe to the channel. I will continue sharing my experiences in hope of helping you grow in your roles. I'll see you in the next one.